So new water year, we're starting it off. Mother Nature doesn't work on a calendar. We're still behind. Year-to-date precip in the big hole is currently 58% of average, and snowpack is at 90%. Take these numbers lightly, as this is the very beginning of the water year, and 1 inch of snow water equivalent can translate into a large percentage compared to the half-inch average. Regardless, we're trending in the right direction. Here's kind of the graphs that we typically see of median values. Upper Valley forecast for the upcoming week is for temps in the 40s to 50s with chances of rain and snow in the higher elevations as we transition into the weekend and through next week. And then as far as ENSO's going, La Nina conditions have developed and are expected to continue with an 87% chance of La Nina in December to February. We're now into what is called a double dip La Nina event, basically back-to-back La Nina winters. There's a helpful link in there. For what it's worth, double dip La Nina events typically lend to strong winters in Montana, but we all know how the last La Nina event panned out for the big hole. So last year was La Nina, near 100% snowpack towards the end of winter and then gone really quick, right? Here's a graph that shows the number of winters with wetter than normal conditions in back-to-back La Nina events. So it's, if you can't see it there, it's the number of times the second of back-to-back La Nina winters was wetter than normal. So that's looking out of 15, somewhere between 9 and 11 of those years have been wetter than normal. So something to look forward to, be hopeful about, I guess. 3-month outlook, equal chance of normal temps and equal to slightly above normal precip. So we're kind of in that white zone there of equal chances, normal precip. And then seasonal precip outlook look like, yeah, we're pretty much right in the normal, not quite in the leaning above trends. Okay. Any questions? If you had them, I probably couldn't answer them very well. All right, I'll get you, let's get over to our director's report. And I'm really excited about Jim talking, so I'm gonna try to cruise through this stuff pretty fast. Okay, it's been a lot for me this, from my desk this month, has been a lot of trying to get the message out, a different message than maybe some of the messages getting out in the public sphere about how this year went. Thank you to the board who reviewed a guest column that we wrote. That looks like it's going to come out tomorrow morning. And you know, hopefully that folks get a good perspective of what collaborative conservation looks like. And I emphasized in that piece really just looking at 1988 and looking at this year as a sort of a benchmark or a reference to, you know, what happened then, what happened this year. Try to see if I think that there were some gains and some things that we can be hopeful about, just in the fact that the water year, and I put this up, so I asked Matt Norberg to do a comparison. So I've got some good data on that. So that black line there is 2021, and the light green line is 1988 as far as cumulative precip. So we were below 1988 this year for a majority of the year. And the river, you know, didn't go dry this year in Wisdom. In 88, it went dry for 30 plus days, right? So that kind of anecdotal story or comparison, I think, is just, I use it as a reference point of where we're at. You know, I talked to a lot of folks, called around a lot, really tried to understand how you all are feeling about drought and everything. And it really just, Mother Nature just, you know, lent us a bad hand this year. And unlike 88, it wasn't kind of everyone out for themselves with gravel push-up dams to try to get all the water they could. This year, it really seemed to be a spirit of collaboration and folks talking to each other and everyone kind of taking a hit equally seemed to be the way things went. There's obviously holdouts and folks not participating in collaborative conservation, so there's room for improvement, you know, and I'm open to ideas on how we can get more participation in drought management moving forward. Right. Let me share this screen to see how else can see it. There's not much on there, but we'll put it up anyway. All right, so that's that. Lots of phone calls. The next thing it's just a unique opportunity that presented itself, and is this amazing piece of handiwork here that you see in front of you, which is this handmade custom guitar that has been donated to the Watershed Committee for us to auction as part of our conservation fund. So the money raised from selling this guy will go right into the conservation fund that will help us fund potentially the project that we were out looking at today in the Upper Big Hole. I like the idea of more of these types of opportunities presenting themselves and us having ways to just raise money basically by auctioning off things. This one has really almost no relation to the Big Hole other than the fact that the donor of the instrument knows about our work and appreciates fish and fishing and likes the Big Hole and visits here on occasion and heard about this conservation fund and happened to have this guitar. His name is Michael Reed. He is the wood buyer for a guitar company. So he actually goes and procures the wood that gets turned into guitars, and he reclaims wood from abandoned farmhouses in Brazil and harvests that and brings that wood over and has stuff made out of it. So this guitar was made out of 150-year-old farmhouse that was decommissioned and took the pieces and had a luthier put it together. So that's exciting. That's that auction, it'll be a 10-day auction. I think it'll launch tomorrow, but if not, it'll be next Thursday. Just depends on getting some stuff on eBay set up. If you know anyone interested in music or plays music or collects guitars, I figured that we wouldn't have an extensive contact list here in this group of those types. So I went to Logjam Presents, who is a music producer in Missoula. They have a mailing list of 65,000 people, and they've donated about $800 worth of advertising, email newsletters, and social media to get the word out about this thing. So I'm hopeful that you know, someone will like what we're doing, want to contribute to conservation, and wants an awesome guitar. So I thought I'd just bring it to show you guys. Couple other little things on my plate. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is starting to just convene a group. They've been hearing a lot about interest in easements in the Upper Big Hole. A lot of landowners kind of expressing some interest, and they want to convene a group that kind of looks at the progress and status of those and trying to set themselves up, Fish and Wildlife Service, to potentially participate in those and help get some of those actions on the ground as part of grand conservation. So I've been invited to sit on that steering committee, very early stages, so I wanted to let you know about that. Acid mine drainage and mushrooms. Seriously, those two go together. We did get that grant from the DNRC. We will be piloting we'll do a demonstration and pilot project to run acid mine drainage from the Elkhorn mine through a bioabsorbent filtration system, basically mycelium in pipes that, because of the difference in the ionic, the difference in the charge of the solid mycelium and the metals, they'll actually just stick to the mycelial mass. That's been proven in countless papers. It's never been put in the field and tested. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm pretty excited about that. Keep you posted as that progresses. I've also been immersed. You all remember Pat Donnelly from the Intermountain West Joint Venture. Some years ago, gave a talk here where he was able to track sandhill crane migrations to flood irrigated wetlands and sort of link the two. The software he uses is the Google Earth Engine, which basically is a public database of all of the Landsat and satellite imagery that's been collected. It's all available to be used. He invited me to sit in on this course that he teaches. Jared, I believe you took this course. It is like learning a completely new language, but the tool is pretty powerful in what it could do, and I think it will help us in answering some questions and prioritizing where we work, just as far as water storage. I'm still kind of a newbie at this, but I figured it was a pretty awesome invitation, and I took him up on it, and we'll see where it goes. But I'm enthusiastic about what we can do with this data set and being able to access that data. And you know, I'm open to ideas, and I'll be happy to have more kind of individual conversations about that stuff. And then lastly, still poking away at creating a ask to the NRCS to fund irrigation projects. So if there are head gates out there that need fixing, you know, irrigation structures that need help, or changes to how water gets from point A to point B that could be a conservation benefit involved, you know, we're interested in putting together that list, scoping these projects, and putting in a proposal for an RCPP grant with the NRCS. So keep the word out there, please. Keep your ears open. If folks have those needs, we've identified a bunch in the Wise River that we're pursuing. There's the double ditch below Melrose that we've looked at forever. You know, that's back on the table. The goal really is just try to write one grant to fund a lot of projects as opposed to do them one at a time in 2-year intervals. So that's it. Okay, I have talked a bunch, so I'm going to pass it on. Any questions about what I got going? That's just what I remembered that I have going before this meeting. There's a lot of other things as usual, but isn't it? I know. Okay, who's up next? Steering committee, any updates? No updates. No updates. Okay. We'll meet soon. I'll send out an email to get us together. We're due for our 3rd quarter. Okay. Jana, you up? Okay, yeah, do that. Yeah, that's better. Make sure we get this right, and I will leave you the mic.
All right, I just have a quick wildlife update today. The Range Rider program just wrapped up September 30th, and our Upper Big Hole Range Rider, Chet Robertson, he patrols 6 U.S. Forest Service grazing allotments for 7 livestock producers in the Upper Big Hole, monitoring for carnivore activity and looking for dead or injured livestock. And he does this to help livestock producers and large carnivores share the landscape. And his primary tasks are finding and reporting carcasses so that landowners can secure, or producers can secure reimbursement for losses, to keep wolves moving and just kind of aware of his presence, and to inform producers of carnivore locations and activities. So those are the basic tasks of Chet's job, but he also ends up doing a lot of other things that provide indirect benefits to producers and to the watershed. So a couple things he did this year, besides tracking wolves and bears, he also, let me come back to that. He also helped get a wildfire under control. So he found a little lightning strike and contained it with his chainsaw and called the Forest Service and the correct authorities who came and got it under control. He also helped a couple producers locate missing livestock and helped bring them in at the end of the year. Well, not help bring them in, but helped let livestock producers know where they were in some cases. And he also, this year, he did a lot of talking to campers and hunters and kind of warning them of the grizzly bears that are out on the landscape. So I think that's something that we don't really recognize as a benefit of Chet's work, but it's definitely a benefit for those hunters. So this year, Chet tracked several wolves, and with our game cameras, we've got photos of several of them. There were 2 dens located, but there were no confirmed depredations to wolves or grizzlies on our mold allotments. So this year, the game cameras that we have on the allotments photographed a grizzly bear, which is a pretty big deal for us because, as we know, grizzly bears are moving in and through the watershed more and more, but anytime that we can get photographic evidence of one or tracks confirmed, it's a pretty big deal. So we sent the photos of the tracks and the bear to FWP, and they confirmed that it was a grizzly, and we also submitted a hair sample, but we're not sure if that hair was from the grizzly or not, so we'll see when those DNA results come back. I also attended a meeting in Wisdom on October 14th that was put on by the Fish and Wildlife Service and Fish, Wildlife and Parks, just kind of giving them the preliminary results of their pilot study in grizzly bear presence and genetics. And this covered a pretty large area of southwest Montana, including the big hole. Sorry, I don't have the map here of the study, but basically they set up hare corrals and had several crews with Fish and Wildlife Service, Defenders of Wildlife, and Lobo National Forest. And they went to 140 sites on Forest Service land and set up these corrals and tried to get hair samples from these bears. So the results, there were only 2 grizzly bears photographed at one particular site. There were black bears at 100 sites. 52 of the sites had camera issues. Seems high, I'm not really sure why that happened. 805 hair samples were collected and 181 were determined to potentially be from grizzly bears and sent to a lab for analysis. But those DNA results won't come back till the spring. So it's a little bit about the study, but unfortunately we don't know the results yet. But as soon as we do, we will share them. And so what can we do to prepare for grizzlies? Just be bear aware, carry bear spray, make noise, travel in groups whenever possible, and be especially careful when you're out there hunting. And on your properties, secure bear attractants like livestock, feed, and trash. And I just wanted to mention that Beaverhead County and people in carnivores are ahead of the game, because those of you who live in the big hole probably noticed that they installed bear-resistant lids at the transfer stations. And it's pretty slick. You just go up and push a button and it opens it up, throw your stuff in there and push the button again and it shuts it. So kudos to them for being ultra prepared for bears. And and this photo, this wasn't taken by a range rider, but it was sent to him. And it's a photo of grizzly tracks taken by a hunter near Bagby. You can see it's a pretty sizable track. And that's all I've got for wildlife. Dean or Jim or anyone else that need to add?
I'm just working with I'm involved in work with Western Landowners Alliance on predation, and they have a meeting once every a month and looking at the 4 C's compensation control, which includes lethal, collaboration, and conflict. And just looking at predation throughout the West and trying to figure out ways to address the impact to the predator and to the livestock operator. And so spent quite a lot of time on that. Out here where we're in the open space, is really difficult to use a lot of the practices like flat lanes and stuff like that. But in a smaller scenario, There's a lot of effective ways to deter predators. So, and that's interesting. And kind of doing on behalf of the watershed. And town is involved also.
I sit in on the calls, but I don't often have much to offer. It's really a producer led conversation, but I'm learning a lot.
Well, I appreciate it, Jen. Thank you. Taking the time to, be up on those types of things and reporting out to us. Okay. Wildlife, we'll be on to Ben. You ready? Should I do it? Okay.
All right. Well, I had a productive month in the restoration programs world. I started off the month, I got invited to install a culvert fence with the Clark Fork Coalition. It was outside of Anaconda on Foster Creek. I know it's not in our watershed, but I thought it was a great opportunity to continue learning about these beaver mitigation projects and these structures. So I went out with Elissa Schott with the Clark Fork Coalition. She's the beaver mitigation specialist, and she helped us on the 2 projects that we did last year. So it's good to see a different scenario and learn some of the nuances that are involved with some of these projects. And there's a before and after photo. And basically what the beavers were doing were clogging this ginormous culvert and causing heartache for the landowner. And these culvert fences allow the beaver to maintain their habitat and stay on the landscape. And also they are able to let the landowner be happy and satisfy their goals too. So I mentioned it last year, but if you guys do have any of these beaver conflicts on, or of any beaver conflicts, then reach out. I think the more and more we do these types of things, we can start to have the capacity to help you guys out and do good things as far as beaver mitigation projects. We had a productive couple days up at Elkhorn. Pedro mentioned the new grant that we got. We went up there and completed our fall field work. We did our fall water quality sampling analysis with the DEQ grant, finished that up. And we also looked at these polychlorinated biphenyls. They're called PCBs. And we're thinking that they're around what we believe to be the transfer station up there when they were doing their mining operations. It's basically a fancy word for this oily stuff that they use for industry for their electrical transfer. I don't know electrician, but I know that it's terrible for water quality and it stays around in the soils for a long time. So we went up there and grabbed some soil samples to see if it's in the soils. We're gonna be looking at that data here after we get it back from the lab, and then come up with a strategy to remove it if it is in the soil. So that was pretty neat to be a part of that. Another exciting thing that happened up at Elkhorn this year is we hosted a tour with Forest Service employees and some key personnel up there, some higher up folks who we wanted to introduce them to Elkhorn and really get it back on their radar, that it's an important site, it's a priority site with the intentions of using their interest and their capacity to bring in the big bucks that we'll need to finally get this thing cleaned up. So I'm happy that we got that tour done, and Pedro is a big part of that. And I'm hopeful that it'll pay dividends here in the future, because we're going to need some big bucks and we're going to need the Forest Service to be a big partner agency on that project. This time of year is a busy time of year for grant proposals and future projects developments. And one of the ones that we're eyeing up right now is what we're calling the Smith Sage Springs Restoration Project. Vanna hit on this a little bit last meeting, but it's a pretty massive bog fen wetland system in the it's west of Wisdom in a big hole on private ranch. And here on the left-hand side is a photo of some of the degradation that's happening up there. massive head cutting that's happening, and it's drying out that mesic area and completely shifting the hydrology and the vegetation up there. So we're actively working on a restoration strategy. We were out there today. Jared was on site. U.S. and Fish and Wildlife Service is a big partner on that one. So we're coming up with a strategy and going to tackle this one because it's key pronghorn habitat and sage-grouse habitat. And there's some massive sedimentation going on as well, as you can see. During the break, we're going to show you guys some drone footage that we took today, and it's pretty neat. You should take a look during the break. So that one, we will be going after DEQ4. I also have this landscape scale restoration grant that we're applying for. This will be the third time we've gone for this one, but I say third time's the charm, right? So to refresh your memory, we're going to be targeting Cartney Mountain. We're going to be targeting the Eastern Pioneer Foothills and the Western Highlands to do aspen enhancement, conifer encroachment, and pre-commercial thinning. So, you know, with that, we hope to get this forestry program going within the Big Hole Watershed Committee and start this Big Hole Forestry Cooperative. So I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, we're going to get that one in by the end of the month, and then hopefully we can get some good work done on the landscape. Yeah, say it again. Yep, and this is all on private land too. So we're gonna, once we get the funding, we're gonna really hone in our projects from there. But we do, yeah, it's mostly conifer encroachment and thing. Yep. There's some aspen too that we're eyeing up. But yeah, all of these kind of regions, we've eyed up some projects, but we can't do anything until we get the funding for it. So, yep, that one will be done. And lastly, I've been moving the French Gulch Fish Passions project forward, getting to contracting through DNRC and the Conservation District. And with that, we can finally get our engineers back on site and start to finish up the survey to get to final design on that project. And that will be implemented next summer. So super excited about that. It's going to be a large scale project that will open up about 2 miles of headwater tributary for Arctic grayling and West Slope petties. Right? Any questions? Right?
Okay. We're open for, is there any additional business or things not on the agenda anyone wants to cover? I've got one small thing. Open it up for anybody. Anything that wasn't covered yet? Things coming up?
I have a question for Ben, really quick.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Did you guys get water samples back from Elkhorn results?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet, he said. We did the round 2 that Ben and I went out there.
Yes.
We got those samples back.
Yep. We did get those samples back. And yeah, we got those samples back, and everything's pretty much just the way it was last year, except we did sample below the waste rock pile, and that's super hot.
Okay. Max, did you catch that? He said that the samples that we got was a redo of last year's, and everything's the same except just below the waste rock pile is super hot. We did some new sampling there, and it's, yeah, of concern for sure. So you all know, just, you know, it's really, we're in this characterization phase up there, is figuring out where are the metals, where are they hottest, what's the volumes, and that's going to lead into the design for how to remedy the site, right? So we have to kind of have a good idea before we start digging around of how deep are we digging and where. That's kind of the phase that we're in. But it was exciting to get Sherry Ford as the regional supervisor, the head of engineering for the forest for that region, and the head of their GIS shop for that region up there. So it really is, our partners at the forest are really trying to get the higher ups at the Forest Service to prioritize the Elkhorn in their list of funding so that we can, because this is big project. This is not a small deal. It's, you know, a couple $1 million worth of remediation will be needed to solve this problem. So throwing everything we can at it. Okay, any other additional questions or items? Okay, the last thing I have, I'll just pass it around. There's a couple copies of this letter. So we're Charlie O'Leary, one this way. We all might know he's with the Southwest chapter of Montana Wild. He is putting in a proposal for a RAC grant through the Forest Service. That's like a recreation grant. And basically, he and a group of folks are kind of really frustrated with the way some people leave our public lands and campsites and the way they create way more fire pits and places to sit and rock furniture, log furniture all over the place. So basically the proposal is for them and a group of volunteers to visit 52 campsites and clean them up. You know, give them closer to a minimal human touch kind of feeling so that when the next person shows up to them, it kind of looks like it should up there for those settings. So I sent that out to the board, and if I don't hear any, cause for concern, sounds like something, they're asking us for a letter of support basically for their grant. I haven't heard anything negative yet, so until I do, I'll assume that we're just going to write them a letter and support it, and I'll make sure everyone's in the loop when they actually go out there, because it kind of sounds like fun. Get a big, get a posse of Watershed committee members up there helping them out. I think that'd be great. Okay. Nothing else. Oh, yes, sir. I will ask Charlie for before and after pictures. Yes. Great idea. Okay. Yeah, Jim.
The state of Montana has a drought task force. They've had several meetings. They're going to have a regional task force looking at drought, and they're looking for people to participate in that. So that would be a place for someone to have some input. And listening to their meetings. They're not particularly looking at ways to generate more water like cloud seeding or vegetative manipulation of the watershed or underground storage or groundwater storage. So that's something that needs to be looked at in the state of Montana. So more of us can mention that in those meetings, the better off we'll be.
How frequently okay.
Are these different from the governor's drought? Okay. We've been trying to sit in on those.
I think they were going to meet these regional groups maybe 3 or 4 times. Get feedback, and in the next 6 months, maybe.
Okay, so they'll be distilling down to Southwest region.
Southwest
is one of the regions. Okay, so we'll make sure to, I'll stay in touch on that and make sure we have folks listening, and we'll send out a communication to folks when we find out about that meeting.
Yeah, do it before we
Okay. Okay. Well, that'd be great. Yeah, as many of us as possible can sit in on that. I think I'll table my question because it'll just generate a lot of talk, but I'm curious to know what goes on. If they're not talking about these things, then what are they talking about? But okay, no other questions or additional business. I want to give Jim plenty of time for his talks. I'm really excited about it. So we will take a quick break and let's convene right back here in about 10 minutes. And we'll have Jim Dennehy give us a talk about Butte water supply. All right.
Yeah.
All right, we are back. And we are going to get going with our main event tonight. I am thrilled to present Jim Dennehy with the Butte Water System to you, and longtime board member of the Watershed Committee. And we got to talking this year, obviously. It was tough on everybody. And I asked him a few questions about how things are going for Butte and water supply, and some of the data that he shared with me was just kind of really made me realize how connected our river system is to what happens in Butte and water consumption there. So he's going to give us a lowdown on his work and the Butte water system and how it impacts the Big Hole River. Yes, sir. All right. Thank you. And you got your clicker there, should be working for you.
Great.
Left, right, and there's a laser in the button.
Loud first, shut off.
Where's the link?
So this guy. Oh,
Okay, great. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Pedro and the committee for allowing me to give this presentation on behalf of Butte-Silver government. First, the presentation, basically, I'd like to run down a little bit of the history of the system. It's pretty unique in itself. I believe you can't move forward unless you know where you've been. And then basically also talk about the system today, what we do, how we convey water from our sources. And another part I'd like to talk about this summer, what happened this summer, was it affected all of us, from the utility to the ranchers to the recreation people. So I'd like to go over that a little bit, and then also lastly cover where we're going, what the future holds for us. So anyway, let's get started here. Oh. Is that the one without the batteries?
I think it's because you need me in PowerPoint.
Oh. Let's see. I can just go.
There we go.
But anyway, it's a really interesting history. As early as the 1870s, it became obvious that Butte's future didn't solely depend on the area's geology. A more basic resource, water, would basically determine the future of Butte's growth. And, the mining properties, they use large quantities of water. Underground fires required enormous quantities of water. And the local waters were contaminated and unfit for consumption, basically because of the mining, the milling, sewage from mining, and sewage residential. So Butte quickly became dependent on sources outside the city limits. And then basically in 1891, Butte stood at the crossroads and needed to come up with a reliable water supply. And then in 1891, the Butte City Water Company was organized. Engineer Eugene Carroll was in charge of the utility. Over the next decade, 10 years, Carroll oversaw the transformation of the system from one with a daily capacity of less than 1 million to one that was capable of producing 13 million gallons a day. Also, back in the day, 1891, the Butte City Water Company promised to spend $2 million to develop the system. $2 million. Then I don't know how much it is today, So that's a lot. So anyway, the first thing that they did was build a Basin Creek Dam from 1892 to 1895. Basin Creek Dam was constructed. 1896, there a flume from Fish Creek, which is on the other side of the divide up in the highlands, was built. run water from Fish Creek to the Basin Creek Reservoir was constructed. And then in 1897, Basin Creek number 2 dam was built. And during that time, the city still didn't have enough water to provide for mining and for potable water system. Let's just keep going here. And feel free to ask any questions when you'd like.
The water rights on Basin Creek and Fish Creek, do you have preceding rights?
Coming up. I got this. Okay. Anyway, 1899, the financial panic, Butte City Water Company went into receivership. And in 1901, company reorganized as the Butte Water Company. And guess who? Primary owner was the Anaconda Mining Company.
Receivers, is that like bankruptcy?
Bankruptcy, yes, yes. So everybody's a little bit familiar with the ACM, you know. So anyway, of course, you know, the Basin Creek water supply couldn't keep up with demand. So the city went elsewhere. The best place that they could go was the Big Hole River and also the South Fork supply. You know, of course, the Big Hole is on the other side, is on the Atlantic side of the Continental Divide. They pumped water 27 miles from pump station into Butte. And it was the only system at the time that in the United States that moved water from the Atlantic drainage to the Pacific drainage. Pretty unique in itself. And then also involved the construction of the South Fork Reservoir, South Fork up on Fleecer, 13 million gallon reservoir. Basically, from the pump station, they pumped it 700 feet, I don't know how many, yeah, approximately 700 feet of head from the river up to South Fork, and from South Fork, gravity all the way into Butte. And then by 1902, the system provided an additional 4 million gallons to the city. And then finally, they still didn't have enough water, so the completion of the system required the construction of the Molten Reservoir. The Molten Reservoir is about 7 miles north of Butte, you know, north of Walkerville. It was completed in 1907, 240 million gallon capacity. And basically that reservoir supplied water to the north end of town on upper elevations of the system, the highest pressure zones. Butte's basically pressure from top to bottom is a little over 1,000 feet. So quite a bit of pressure differential there. So then anything, just a little bit more on the history. From the 1920s to the 1970s, the company did make profits, but very little in the way of major investment and capital improvements. It was the Anaconda Company. And basically, if you were a shareholder, you know, most of that money was going in the pockets of, you know, from dividends. They didn't put any money into the infrastructure for over 50 years. And then in 1977, the Anaconda Company was sold to Atlantic Richfield. 1986, Dennis Washington bought Anaconda Mining Company. Along with that came the Butte Water Company. And then in 1990, a class action lawsuit was brought against Dennis Washington by a group of concerned citizens because the water company wasn't providing safe water. You know, back in, you know, at that time, DEQ, back then, or the Department of Environmental Quality issued a boil order in Butte. You had to boil your water before you could drink it. And, you know, that's terrible, you know, all I can say. So then in 1992, the Butte Water Company was sold to MERDI. That was Montana Economic Revitalization and Development Institute. They ran it for a few years. And during that time, the Fish Creek pipeline was constructed to replace the old flume from Fish Creek. The construction of the Big Hole and the Molten water treatment plant was constructed. And that was significant. That, Butte, for up until this time, surface water into, for consumption, the only thing that they did was chlorinated it. And but it wasn't, it was okay, but it wasn't, every surface water system in America should go through filtration. That's all there is to it. And then 1996, the water company finally transferred to the city of Butte as part of the lawsuit settlement. And then in 2017, the Basin Creek Water Treatment Plant was built, along with the Basin Creek PRV and the South Side Pump Station. And I'd just like to mention here on the South Side Pump Station, the operators, we went out, solicited bids for construction, and we felt, the crew, that ran the facility, say it would be good to build a facility, a pump station where we can convey water from Basin Creek to the upper elevations of Butte. The upper elevations of Butte is supplied by the Big Hole Basin, because the yield sometimes during, summer months, Basin Creek just serves the flat, the downtown area, the lower elevations, but we have excess water that we basically went down the creek and said, can we utilize that a little bit differently? So that's the reason that South Side Pump Station was put up. So we'll just move a little bit along here. And then I just wanted to make, this is important. The water company became publicly owned in 1996. Okay, during and after this time, major repairs and capital improvement projects were completed to bring the system up to modern standards. For what we did, replace miles of transmission and distribution mains, constructed 3 water treatment plants, replaced open storage tanks with closed storage tanks, and then also the new diversion dam at the river, and also the new water pump station at the river. And during this time, from 1996 to now to 17, with 25 years, capital came, I would say, roughly in the neighborhood of $150 million. And that money came from, ARCO, MRI, DNRC, ratepayers, and state, local, and state governments. Got a lot of funding from multitude of entities, whether they were grants or loans or whatever. A lot of, with the construction of the Basin Creek or the Big Hole and Molten plants, they were loans, and they finally been paid off here. It was maybe a 20-year loan, so they're paid off now. So the thing is, the city of Butte has brought the system up to the standard where it should be today. They invested in the system. We feel that in order to have a good economy, you have to have good infrastructure. And along with good infrastructure, you have to have the resource. We believe that we have the resources, the water, Butte, here in Montana, especially in Butte, we're right on top of the Continental Divide. So there's no users ahead of us. We're the first user. So water quality, it's excellent, from either, if it's from the impoundment or from the river. We feel that rivers, everybody knows how we feel about the Big Hole River. But anyway, the system is a pretty complex system. It draws water from several separate raw water impoundments and streams, 3 separate water treatment plants, the Big Hole, Basin Creek, and the Molten one. And then within our system, we have 7 different pressure zones. But well, I mean by a pressure zone, like I said, 1,000 feet of elevation. So you have to, within state standards, basically you have to supply the customer no less than 35 PSI, no greater than, I think, maybe 135 PSI. So we have to adequately give the customer adequate pressure, and not only the customer, also fire protection. That's important also. And then we'll have 4 finished storage reservoirs and then 4 booster stations. And then, like I said, the Molten water treatment plant was commissioned in 1995, a capacity of 2 MGD. The Molten reservoir consists of a smaller upper reservoir, 11 million gallon upper reservoir, and a lower 24 million gallon lower reservoir. Basically, the upper reservoir, we kind of hold that water back until late summer, you know, just for additional storage. It's not very big, but it helps, you know. Up in the Molten drainage, the water, it's not a very big watershed. You don't get a lot of runoff there, but in the past several years, because of the beetle kill, our reservoir, we're filling it full more of capacity, because basically there's nowhere for that water to go. The trees aren't absorbing it or anything, so it's running into our reservoirs. So it's working out a little bit better for us. And like I said, it treats, it operates to take advantage of opportunity to serve the city's highest pressure zones. And like I said, the water rights, you know, we get to basically it's Yankee Doodle Creek. The priority date on that was, I believe, 1907. The maximum flow rate is 4.3 CFS, and then the maximum volume is around 3,100 acre feet. And basically, you know, we can pretty much take as much as we can out of there based on the yield. And the Molten water treatment plant, I'll talk a little bit later on that. We have some deficiencies there, and we hope to increase the capacity of that facility, you know, in the years to come. Make rather than a 2 MGD plant, maybe to a 3, 3.5, or 4. Okay. And the Big Hole water treatment plant, commissioned in 1994, treats water from the Big Hole River and the South Fork Reservoir. The diversion dam alongside the river directs water into the pump station. The pump station is equipped with 5 vertical turbine pumps. I think horsepower on each one of those is around 250 horse, I believe. And then the water is pumped through a 36-inch transmission main, 10 miles up to the Big Hole water treatment plant. It's on the Feely Hill exit there, you know, right up by Tim Garrison's place there. And then water from South Fork Reservoir flows by gravity into the water treatment plant through a 24-inch main. And then, like I said, the new diversion dam was constructed in 2010, and the new pump station was constructed in 2012. And then, but the thing is, the water treatment plant, when it was built, it was rated as 16 MGD plant. I know when I was an operator, you know, it's like buying a new car here. It says 160 miles an hour. You put your foot on the gas, you say, you know, it'll do it for a little while, but you know, you can't sustain that. So theoretically, you know, operational wise, you know, right around 13 MGD a day. That's about, you know, we can, demand wise, that satisfies demand. Water rights, you know, everybody, you know, that's a big thing these days, you know. So on the river, the priority date was 1901. The maximum flow rate, 21 CFS, and then the maximum volume was right around 15,000 acre feet. So basically, 15,000 acre feet equates to 21 CFS every single day. We can pull 13 million gallons out of the river every single day. That's our right. That's our right. You know, haven't done that for 30 years, 30 plus years, you know, as far as I know. And then our next one, this is Basin Creek Water Treatment Plant. Water from the 360 million gallon reservoir is treated with the new water treatment plant. This is a state-of-the-art water treatment plant completed in 2007 and is the first plant in the United States to employ ceramic membrane technology. The plant has a capability of treating 7 mgd a day. Membrane, there's a lot of membrane technology's been out in the world for 25 years now. Most membrane technology, it goes through a tube, you know, and the warranty, the life cycle on a polymetric type membrane would be maybe 5 to 7 years. Ceramic, we have on these membranes, you know, 2007, we have a 25-year warranty on each one of these membranes. So, you know, they cost a little bit more upfront, but for 30 years, it's a lot more efficient. And then, like I said, it's a pretty interesting plant. All I wanted to show, we have 40 modules. You don't see any water in this plant. You know, water comes through all these pipes and through these modules, and it just goes out the door. And I'll talk a little bit more about Basin Creek as we move along here, why Basin Creek is so important to the city of Butte and to the Big Hole River. That's a point that I really want to make here. And then, like I said, there's 400 modules and one recovery unit. Another thing about this facility, it's 99.95% efficient. And basically what that means is raw water coming in goes right out the door to the customer. Like our Big Hole and our Molten plant, they're classified as conventional treatment. Back in the day, that's it. Efficiency wise, we're right around anywhere from anywhere between 90 to 94% efficient. You've got to do a lot of backwash and send water to the lagoons, and we can recycle a little bit of water. But water right on Basin Creek, the priority date was 1868. I think that was 4 years after President Lincoln was shot, I think. So there was people here back then, you know, and like I said, the maximum flow rate, 24 CFS, and maximum volume was 17,000 CFS. But basically what we're looking at is what the yield will give us each year. You know, what's ever in the mountains, you know, that's what we have to work with. And then I just wanted to, this is just how it works here. And I just wanted to tell you that this plant, it's a pressure driven plant. It's elevation of the reservoir is X, you know, it's 5887, and the elevation of our water treatment plant is around 5,800, so 87 feet. So pressure wise, it's the pressure from the reservoir is pushing the water through the membranes and through town. And then on the flip side of that, it's pressure driven. And then on the other side, it's an on-demand system. Most water treatment plants in the United States, you're going to have a treatment plant, and then you're going to have a clear well. You know, you take you filtrate water, goes into storage for additional storage to provide for distribution system. This plant basically is on demand. If people downtown or down on flats are, let's say nobody used any water that day, there would be no water coming out of that plant. We don't even have to touch anything. And then they start using, just like sprinkling season, you know, you can see when people are sprinkling, the system will give what the customer wants. Okay. And then also just wanted to cover a little bit about the water mains. The Butte water transmission mains consist of approximately 400 miles of water mains ranging from 2-inch to 36-inch, but the system's primarily made up of 6-inch mains. We'd like to, we have a program going in our, we'd like to get all the 2-inch mains out of there. And also we like to see our system, a loop system. We don't like to see any dead ends in the system because that can cause a little bit of water problems, water quality problems for us. And like I said, since 1992, we've replaced 460,000 miles of pipe, 87 or feet of pipe, 87 miles of water mains have been replaced since 1992. So what Butte is moving forward progressively. And then, like I said, pressure zones in Butte is just, like I said before, we have basically 7 pressure zones. And all we're doing in pressure zones is conveying water from a source to a place in town where we can adequately regulate pressure. And like I said, minimum of like 35 PSI, maximum maybe about 100, I'm not sure, maybe 130 pounds, okay? And then, like I said, storage tanks, we have 4 storage tanks. Colorado Hill storage tank was built in 1993. Colorado Hill tank's a 9 million gallon storage tank. You're going into Butte from Rocker, just look to the south there, you'll see that tank, it's up on Colorado Hill. 9 million gallon storage tank, all the water that we pump from the big hole system goes to that tank. And then that tank, elevation wise, it's sitting pretty high. We can gravity feed water all the way up to, a little bit, a couple blocks below Park Street, gravity, and still maintain adequate pressure. Then we have the west side tank. If everybody's familiar with Butte, up by the Big M is the west side tank. That's a 5 MGD tank, a 1 million gallon tank. Basically that tank is, we have a pump station that's big hole water for the most part. We pump water from Colorado Hill up to the west side tank. So basically the big hole is supplying the entire Butte's Hill and a majority and a lot of the south side of Butte. And then we have high service tank that's north of Butte, that's the 2.5 million gallon tank, and then the Butchertown, that's right at our base at our molten water treatment plant. And it's basically these tanks help maintain pressure in our distribution system in each zone.
It goes under the highway.
Pardon me?
It goes under the highway then,
From
the main, from
Call
up to Colorado.
okay, it doesn't go. Yes, everybody's been going up and down the interstate lately. We just are completing. We did a jack and bore through the interstate. This is the last part of our project from the big hole to this Colorado Hill tank. Our project will be complete by maybe next spring. It's all new transmission main from the big hole all the way into town. And like I said, right now we had to do jack and bore through the to get our transmission main through the highway. I think that project near completion, it was probably around $2.2 million project. So that pipe, the big, I don't know if I covered that, but that transmission pipe main from the big hole to Butte was, it used to be wood stave pipe, back in the early 1900s, wood stave with bands around it. And then in the mid 1970s, that main was replaced, and they replaced it with 36-inch used pipe. It was used, it wasn't new. They bought it, I think They bought it in Canada. They got us a sweet deal on it, and it wasn't lined. You know, so they, you know, lined the inside of it. They sprayed it with some chemical, you know, some epoxy or whatever. And I'll tell you what, you know, I have to send samples in, raw water samples, you know, in on it depends on what's the analyte I'm testing for, whether it's SOCs, VOCs, whatever. I used to get hits. It was tetrachloroethylene. You know, and it was near the MCL, the maximum contaminant level, but it was detected. So they said, why? And so it was a concern that, you know, that's part of the reason this new transmission main, and it was old and it was reject pipe for one thing why they did it. I don't know.
You weren't around.
I didn't know what was going on back then as much as I do now, but anyway, yes, that's why that we replaced that main.
So how many miles was $2.2 million? That was the cost.
That was the cost of the jack and bore. That was just to go under the interstate.
So how many miles?
You know, this was a 7-year project. We've had delays in it, you know. First part of the project we did from the river to the treatment plant. That's approximately 10 miles. You know, we completed that probably maybe 3.5, 4 years ago. And then from the treatment plant into Butte, that's another approximately 10 miles. And today, if you're looking at, you know, basic year funding, way back when it was part of grants, and I think it was part of maybe a little bit of that money was involved with lower area 1 settlement too. I'm not quite sure, you know, but right now, if you're looking at replacing, putting in transmission main, what we put in is ductile iron, 36-inch ductile iron. What's going under the highway right now is HDPE, high density polyethylene pipe. But if you're looking at doing a replacement, we're looking at our industrial system. Anacon, you know, Warren Springs, we're looking at replacing that pipeline from the stack to Ramsey, about $1 million a mile. Is the estimate, you know, what their estimated cost to be. So anyway, you know, our booster stations, basically is conveying water, you know, pumping water from lower elevation to a higher elevation to a higher. So basically, Summit Valley Pump Station, that's down by Ranchland Packing, you know, south, you know, it's the lowest elevation in Butte, I think, Ranchland Packing. Ranchland Packing is 5202, and I think the pump station's right around 5204. So anyway, it's kind of interesting, but that's the lowest point. Summit Valley Pump Station, you know, 2 pumps, pump water from that pump. We take water from the Colorado Hill tank, 9 million gallon storage tank, pump it up to the west side by the Big M into a 5 million gallon storage tank to satisfy the west side zone, like Park Street up to where, like Centerville. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the town, but several hundred feet higher. And then the west side tank, we can pump station, we can pump water from west side to our highest elevation in Butte up to basically 6,400 feet, which is where the Molten water treatment plant is. And then we also have a Main Street pump station, which is, it's a smaller pump station. If we ever had to take the Molten system out of service, we can supply the highest zone in the community through that pump station if we decided to take one of our sources systems offline, the Molten water treatment plant. Okay, here we are. This is a driving force for us now. I wanted to put this picture in here. Like I said earlier, the south side pump station. And you know, capacity is 4 MGD, and it allows us to achieve the project goal of displacing water from the big hole water treatment plant when it's toughest to treat. You know, that's basically spring runoff. You know, it costs us a ton of money in chemicals and whatnot to treat that water. If we can take it from Basin Creek Reservoir, treatment plant, we'd rather do that. And then also and then the Basin Creek Reservoir, historically, the Basin Creek Reservoir is filled every year for the last 25 years, maybe, at the last 30 years, I don't think it might have, it didn't spill maybe 3 years in the last 25 years. This year, we started the summer 5 feet below the spillway. But anyway, the reservoir often still, it exceeds the Basin Creek pressure zone demand. So if it's spilling, we're just supplying the Basin Creek zone, the flats basically. What can we do with that excess water? So what we, got together, that excess water, we built this pump station, and this pump station will pump excess water from the Basin Creek plant up into our Colorado Hill tank. Okay, so we're pushing water to the Colorado Hill tank and backing off on production at the big hole water treatment plant. So, and then also, it's located, it takes care of lower pressure zones, but also that excess water, it's just going down the creek. It's cheap. The Basin Creek water treatment plant, it's our most efficient plant, both from a water quality standpoint and an economical standpoint. It's all gravity. I got some numbers with regard to energy. So why not use that? We're just like any other business in America. We want to optimize our productions, optimize it, efficiency at as little cost as possible. Save the ratepayer a little bit of money, and we're conscientious of that. Okay. Now we're moving on to a different subject. I just want to talk about this summer. Any questions with regard to our system right now? Mark?
Yeah, I gotta throw this up. Where does MRI just get all their water from? Silver Lake, or do you guys supply some of that?
I didn't include that in this because I just wanted to concentrate on this, but Silver Lake, we run Silver Lake, Butte-Silver Bowl. It's Silver Lake, the MRI, REC, Silicon Factory, and a few other customers get their water from Silver Lake. Silver Lake is classified as industrial through Montana DEQ. There's, years ago they wanted, this was back in the early 70s, Butte-Silver was looking at, during the Anaconda times, Arco County, because the water company was owned by Anaconda. They were looking to say, we got a water supply, in Anaconda. Water quality at Silver Lake is outstanding. It really is, to be, back then it didn't go through treatment or anything like that. But anyway, it's classified industrial. I think it'd take, a monumental effort to turn that into a potable water treatment water system for us. But we manage that system. We provide water for MRI. They're the major stakeholder. And basically in the contract, we have to supply them 1 million gallons a day. And then in the contract, if there's planned upset and unplanned upset, a planned upset, they'll call us. We have an unplanned upset up to 7.5 million gallons per day. And if it's an unplanned upset, we have to supply 18 million gallons a day for as long as they want, And then also this past several years, we've been working with DNRC
to do a release to the upper Clark Fork, that we didn't do it last year, but we done it, 4 out of the past 5 years. So how we manage that, Silver Lake is fed by Storm Lake. I don't know, and Twin Lakes, we have Twin Lakes diverge, Twin Lakes diverge. So we manage it, we try to, get it as full come June as we can and manage it that way because of potential customers. Like I said, this last year, we worked with the NRC, signed a contract. We released 32 CFS for 45 days. That's 1 billion gallons, and it helped with the fish, So, if the water's there, why keep it in? And another thing with Silver, we have to do a lot of improvements up there. That dam, there's a lot of seepage on that dam. And we've applied for ARPA money as well, to do some major capital improvements up there. But we both run the potable water system and the industrial system. Yeah. So let's go on. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
You also have water right out of the back here.
Oh, didn't I mention that? Was that there? Let me go back.
It was there.
Oh, let me.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, Divide Creek, our water right is our max, our water, that water right goes back like to 1860, yes. But I think our maximum flow there is, I know it's 8 MGD. I don't like, off the top of my head, I don't know how much CFS that is. But let me just go back there, Jim.
My question was
Oh,
on the water right that says that you can deliver up to 4.5 CFS or you back up supply to ASME, but only up to 3,261. So is that ASME must be, I don't know how much ASME.
our water right, where did I have that? No, ASME, that's industrial. That has nothing to do with that's ASME's water right is off of either from Warm Spring Creeks or Silver or Storm. Like I said, that's on the other. ASME's maximum is 3.6 MGD a day. Is that?
I'm just reading the big water right. It says you can supply the big river. Should only be used as we have back by the primary Silver Lake waters. Those are the comments in the water.
Pardon me?
Those are the comments in the water.
Oh, in the water right.
And what I'm bringing this up for, what we're concerned with water use on the Big Oak River is, you have a water right up to so many, little over 15 million gallons a day. And that's approximately almost 5.8 million gallons.
We don't.
But if you don't use it all, is there a chance people still go, the water company might sell that water to someone else and start using it?
I can't answer that question. All I can say is what the future holds. Butte is growing, and there's projections for future growth, additional customers. So I can't answer that question, Jim.
I'm not worried about use water.
But
I'm worried about water usage.
I'll have to look at that water right, Jim. I don't think ASME as I have those rights. I don't think, ASME can.
It says that they run on the short, we're taking too much.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Got off the path there a little bit. Okay, I want to talk just real briefly about this summer. The water conditions this summer. This is the snowtail. This is the snowtail that I look at all the time. It's the Basin Creek Campground snowtail up in the highlands just above our reservoir. And this black line here, that's the water equivalent for this year. You can see it was a record low. That was 1st of June, and most of May it was. And we're hoping for water, and it never came. That snowtail tells us that it's the lowest snow precip water equivalent in the last 30 years. Okay, I just put this map on here, this chart on here. This is the annual Big Hole pump station flows from 1916 to 2000. And the only thing I want to really point out here is this is all, this is mining. And then in the late 90s, late 80s, 90s, you'll see that spikes a lot of, that was neglect from the utility. We had more leaks in our distribution system and our transmission system than all of the other 5 major cities in Montana combined. Water wasn't getting to the customer, it was just leaking everywhere. So capital improvements there. So we fixed it, late 97s, we got things going, and boom, right here. This is significant. This is Basin Creek Water Treatment Plant came online. So you can see, I'll do an average here. So that's a picture that should stand out for you guys. So anyway, this is 2020 versus 2021. Lots of water in 2000, no water in 2021. All we're looking at here is Big Hole in blue, Basin Creek in green. And 2020, I did this by month, I figured June, July, August, September, that's the irrigation season. So that's when everybody wants water, so it's significant, and I got the numbers, but we relied, Basin Creek stood out because we had water, it's cheap water, it's not economic, and it's better water, I'm saying it's better water than the Big Hole plant. It's just the automation that's involved. It's a little bit, we can, Deepwater can hang their hat on every one of their water treatment plants. We abide, we're staying compliance, and we're never exceeding on any violation or anything like that for some time now. So each one of our water plants provides good water. Basin Creek provides better water. Here we go here. This is just the spreadsheet from the chart. And then I just wanted to show you here. This is the Big Hole River 2000, 2021. 360 million during that time. This year, 652 million. It was, from 2020 to 2021, 81% more water out of the river than the previous year. And that's all predicated because we didn't have any snow in the highlands. There's no snow on Fleecer either. So we didn't take a lot of production from South Fork. Basically, the Big Hole plant, we get the Big Hole is the Big Hole River, South Fork, and then we can recirculate a little bit of our wastewater when we do backwashes, 10% of production. This year we did some, previous year we're cleaning the ponds, but significant, this is Big Hole 61% versus 48% the previous year. The Basin Creek supply is basically our main plant. I'm kind of looking at the big hole now and into the immediate future as how should I call it? A peak plant, during peak time of the year, we run this plant, but I do have to run this plant here, all year long. I can't shut it down for a month or two because the transmission line, I got water in the transmission main, I gotta keep it moving to make sure that it's safe. So, but like I said, the big hole Basin Creek, consumption down 32%, you'd think it'd be a closer correlation, but it's a little bit different because I couldn't take as much water out of the South Fork Reservoir.
Jim, what's your bare minimum that you have to keep taking from the big hole? So it's gonna have to keep water moving through the system. What is that?
Oh, bare minimum out of the big hole water treatment plant, whether or not it's coming from South Fork or the big hole. Ideally, what we've done in the past several years, this year, we'll throw that out, from September through July, 1st of July, we don't start our pumps at the river at all. We take all of our water from South Fork into Butte. That's winter months, not high demand months, but basically I have to keep the big hole water treatment plant running. I'll practice wise, I'll run it for a week, shut it down for a week. So it's only on half the month or half the year, The reason I have to do it is because I have 10 miles of water in a 36-inch transmission main from post-treatment to Colorado Hill. That's 36-inch, that's 10 miles. That's about 2.5 million gallons that's just sitting there. And it'll go up, there's possibility of byproducts, sitting there. I have to move it. There's age considerations with regard to water with disinfection byproducts. So I have to keep that water moving as best I can. Okay, so this is pretty telltale, and then, so that's what happened last year. Like I said, the Basin Creek plant, like I said before, it's our Cadillac, and we want to use it as much as we can. We want to take as much water out of Basin Creek as possible. And like I said, what dictates that? Mother Nature dictates that. So anyway, this is going on today, Butte-Silver water utility capital improvement project. So this is what's going on. The Basin Creek Dam #1 rehabilitation. The Basin Creek Dam was, like I built with Butte in 1897, but in 1913, an additional 13 feet was built, added onto the dam. It was concrete, okay? So that concrete, that top 13 feet is susceptible right now. We have to have inspected. It's high hazard. All of our dams are high hazards, basically, because inundation on people down below. The Molten Dam wasn't considered high hazard until a few years ago. Somebody built a house in the drainage. I don't know how it got done, no permitting or nothing, but now it's high hazard. So you have to jump to a lot of hurdles for regulations. How it got built, I don't know. But anyway, that dam, we've got, basically what we're going to do is do a lot of concrete work on the dam, redo a portion of it. And then what we'll do, it's called their post-tension anchors. And basically that's how, highways are built. They'll drill down, put tension rods into the core, which is the masonry core. They'll drill down and attach to them and tension rods up like rubber bands. And then we'll have 14 of them across the dam. And basically, like I said, this project is approximately a $2.5 million project. We secured funding for it. That's important. We secured $500,000 from TCEP grant. I don't know if it's called TCEP anymore, or MCEP or something.
Cool.
MCEP?
Yeah.
But anyway, secured $500,000 from TCEP and also $125,000 from DNRC. This is important. We already have this stuff rolling. Okay, same thing with the Molten water, the Molten Dam #1 spillway and embankment improvement project. The spillway, it's been neglected for years. We've already, the cost of that is, it's closer to $2 million. We've already gone out, seek funding on that. That's still in the works. We're not quite there yet, but these funds, I just want to talk about the 2 dams for now. We secured funds. So it's that much easier to get funding from ARPA, or, ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act. We've applied for them right now. Since we already did this, I think it's pretty much a guarantee that we're going to get additional funding to improve our dams. And then also the Basin Creek Watershed. This is the closest thing that I can say about Basin Creek Watershed. The Montana DNRC Reductions Fuel Grant Program awarded $50,000. And then I haven't heard yet, but I'm quite sure we'll get $262,000 DNRC grant. Butte-Silver did a vulnerability and assessment program, identify all your assets, which ones are most vulnerable. And myself, Jim Keenan, we went through this work with some engineers. We felt that the Basin Creek Reservoir is our most vulnerable asset. What are we going to do if we have a fire up there? It could be catastrophic, and we're working diligently on trying to get fuels reduction going on in that watershed right now. And then also the Molten water treatment plant to rehabilitate, replace deficient filters. Over the last couple, I'd say half a year, we've found that, it's the filters there. It's a smaller plant. It was, it's basically called a packet plant. The filters are welded steel. Well, a couple of the filters, the bottom plate, you got your medium, then it goes through permeability. The very bottom plate, we're getting leakage. It's leaking out onto the floor. So here in the last month, I called DEQ, have them come over and do an assessment whether or not we have a deficiency or not. And working on that right now. I haven't heard back from them. The possibility, we might have to shut it down, but I really don't think so. It's not a deficiency that I can see. But what we're trying to do here, we've got a preliminary engineering report going on right now. And what I'd like to see get done is not rehabilitate, but replace. And I'd like to see replacement wise, I would like to see pretty much kind of a little same as, but not quite as the Basin Creek plant. I'd like to see that plant and get that rated at 4 MGD. There we can take 4 MGD, satisfy the upper zones, and then we can all get the excess, just like we do at Basin Creek. We can give that excess into the big holes, what the big hole supplies, and then we can back off a little bit more on the big hole, And then, of course, cyber security. Everybody knows about cyber security these days. It's a big thing going on here, and we have technical support. We've got CISA. What is CISA? It's the cyber securities. We've had military people come in at no cost. They're helping us out with regard to this, trying to get us going there. But these are basically the projects that we're working on now. And we hope to get all these projects done here within the next 2 years. And then, finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about capacity assessments. What can we do as a utility to optimize our production? First of all, metering. You know, ideally, in our system, we like to see everybody meter. A lot of our accounts are flat rate accounts in Butte, you know, I'd say 4,500 out of, I'd say that's about a third of all of our accounts. I think we have a little over 12,000 accounts in Butte. Ideally, we'd like to see everybody metered. Of course, we could do a water audit, you know, how much water we're losing, where that water is going. But the number of flat rate, right now, we're pushing, we're trying to, the number of flat rate accounts are steadily decreasing in the community, and we're really pushing that program. Flat rate accounts in Butte, you know, this is the philosophy of a lot of people, you know, if I'm on a meter, I kind of know I'm conservative. I don't want a big bill at the end of the month, you know, like everybody else. People on flat rates, they'll use as much as they can, you know, and that's part of it. Okay, and then demographics, you know, Butte-Silver Bowl comprehensive plan, you know, the trended population growth. We have been steadily, our population has steadily been growing for the last 2 years. And by in the next 20 years, they expect Butte's population, you know, to be, you know, right around 43 to 4,500 or 43 to 45,000 people. You know, so that's more demand. Another thing is new customers. I know, you know, Rocker, Ramsey, Tiflet District. Right now, Rocker gets their water from us. They're a consecutive user. You know, we're the wholesaler. There's a little tank on our distribution main that's there, and then from there they go on. But we're the wholesaler. I don't know exactly how much they use, but it's not much. But anyway, we are eventually going to see pick up the town of Rocker. That's going to be ours in the future, and that's coming. And then Tiflet District, the industrial, you know, there's a lot more customers going on down there. So we'll pick up additional customers in the future. We'll see, you know. And then, of course, everybody's, you know, I just put climate change, you know, question mark. So who knows what's going on? You know, everybody reads about it. Everybody has their opinion on it. And we'll see what happens in the future. But what we want to be beautiful. And then, of course, sprinkling restrictions. I wanted to include that because we got a new administration here the last year. But prior to that, the administration for 4 years, I always call up springtime. I said, are we going to implement, you know, get something in the paper about restrictions, you know, be conservative. He didn't do it. Previous administration. Before that, we used to do it all the time. And I believe people were getting, you know, on board with it. You know, they're used to it, you know, sprinkle, you know, at certain hours a day, or odd or even or whatnot. And you could see it, you know, we have real-time SCADA in our system where we can see the flow going up just, you know, at certain hours a day and whatnot. So that's it. One other thing, I just wanted to wait here. Any questions? I just wanted to show you this video real quick. It only takes about 3 minutes. You want to ask any questions now, or you want to see this? We'll play this slide here. This is about fuels reduction in the Basin Creek watershed. The watershed, by the way, is about 12 square miles.
In effort to provide a reliable source of water to a thirsty mining industry and a growing population, construction of Basin Creek Dam started in the spring of 1892 and completed in 1895. In 1897, construction of a second dam on Basin Creek was initiated a little over a mile upstream of the original dam. For over 100 years, the Basin Creek Reservoirs provided Butte with a pristine and economical water supply that provided around 40% of Butte's drinking water. In the early 2000s, the entire Basin Creek watershed was impacted by the mountain pine beetle, which led to the death of tens of thousands of mature pine trees around the Basin Creek reservoirs. As the trees in the watershed began to die and lose their needles, the concentration of organic matter present in the reservoir increased as a result. The organic matter in the water reacted with the chlorine disinfectant to form a group of regulated disinfection byproducts known as haloacetic acids.
The exceedance of the EPA standard for halo acetic acids prompted the construction of the new Basin Creek water treatment plant. The new Basin Creek plant came online in May of 2017 and has since been Butte's most productive and economical treated water supply, producing some of the best quality water in Montana. Since coming online, the new plant has been able to produce up to nearly 60% of Butte's potable water supply. However, the new plant is not capable of treating water that has been impacted by wildfire, and the condition of the Basin Creek watershed has continued to deteriorate at a rapid rate and has become a disaster area of fallen and standing dead trees that is a dire threat to the future of the Basin Creek water supply. If a large wildfire were to occur in the Basin Creek watershed, slopes and hillsides could be made unstable, which can fill reservoirs and choke intakes with ash and sediment mobilized by subsequent storms, snowpack runoff. As a result, its most productive and economical water supply would likely be rendered unusable, and full recovery could take a decade or more. To protect the Basin Creek watershed, Butte-Silver was working with partners to begin fuels reduction efforts on Butte-Silver property around the Basin Creek reservoirs. However, Butte-Silver only owns a narrow band of property located around the reservoirs and their tributaries, and protecting the water supply will ultimately require a much larger effort in the watershed. The project will likely have to be accomplished in phases with different grants at each stage in coordination between the Forest Service, Silver County, and other partners. The project will aim to complete fuels reduction projects on at least 40% of the watershed to protect Butte's most pristine, productive, and economical water supply for many years to come.
That's it. Oh, one thing, I got my notes, I wasn't looking at them, but as far as energy is concerned, kilowatts per hour, it was in my notes, I didn't pay attention to it, but Basin Creek, kilowatt hour per million gallons costs around $500 from Basin Creek Supply, also running the Southside Pump Station. The Big Hole treatment facility around $3,800 per million gallons of water, just in energy costs. Other costs, if you look at it as far as chemicals, it's pretty close, and manpower is pretty much the same.
7 times.
7 times.
More efficient.
More efficient, yes. Anyway, that's it, guys. Any questions? Okay.
Jim, do you expect challenges from the activists in regards to logging the area?
Well, Jim, what we've been working on this for a while. Tim Leahy, he's the regional forester in Butte. A couple of weeks ago, the city of Helena was in the same situation as we are 10 years ago. They have a similar, system. They have the Chesapeake Reservoir southwest of town. It's pretty much a little bit bigger than the Big Hole water treatment or the Basin Creek Reservoir. And basically it's 5 miles to the treatment plant. Theirs is a little different. Water from their reservoir and other tributaries, they go through canals and open ditches into their water treatment plant. They had the forest was pretty much, they couldn't get water to their treatment plant. So 2003, they got together with the Forest Service, other parties, loggers, DNRC, to what are we going to do here? So 2003, they started this, and then in 2017 it was completed. But I'll tell you what, whenever you're dealing with the Forest Service, any public grounds, you're always going to get litigation. That's a fact. I think a lot of those people that file the that's how they get paid. That's their job, to file litigation. But they overcame it, and we're working with a lot of parties. We're working with the Forest Service. We're working, on our property. We're gonna
basically we have these grants to get, our property, we can do whatever, we can get that timber out of there. But Forest Service, yeah, there's gonna be some, somebody will say, you can't, but we'll move forward. We have to do, we have to get it done. I believe anyway.
There's not much timber value.
There is very little timber value, and then another big problem is that Basin Creek classified as roadless. That's another hurdle that you have to jump over before you can get going, so anyway, it's challenging, but I think we're talking to the right people. We're getting things rolling, right now, hopefully we'll get 16 acres done by next spring. Hopefully if we can get somebody in there to do it, but hopefully just get it moving. And I think it'll get done. I really do. Yeah.
Is Basin Creek a fishery?
Yes, it is.
So do you have to worry about minimum stream flows in the summertime?
Well, it's cutthroat. Okay, well.
That would impact. That would impact how much you have to put out.
Well, there wasn't any fish in the reservoir 30 years ago because for algae control. Okay, way back when, Butte always had a problem with taste and odor, even going back to the early days. People were complaining about taste and odor. And I think that Eugene Carroll went to the Montana State University to talk to guys in the agriculture business, and they said to get rid of taste and odor, copper sulfate. Didn't have, a lot of impact on anything. They still use, we don't use copper sulfate for algae control. We have an algicide that's NSF approved nowadays, but I can tell you, I know you have to do based on your, 2 wet feet of elevation of the water, how many acre feet you can apply 4 parts per million. And I know, they treated the reservoir was blue, but that's long since, that's Anaconda Company days. And I shouldn't be saying that, but that's back in the day. But the reservoir, Jim, it's thriving with cutthroat in the last, 10 years. But, we don't release any water down the creek at all, from the reservoir. It's, as a matter of fact, we've had DNRC here. They want to put a fish ladder up in Basin Creek #1. We have the settling pond that's kind of a barrier for spawning. So they want to put a fish ladder to get from Basin Creek #1 to #2. And we're going to start that project's going to get started next late summer. So I don't know about impact on, but yeah, there's good fish up there.
You might have said this already, but where did the water from the Basin Creek Reservoirs go before the Basin Creek treatment plant was built?
Before the treatment plant was built, that in 1991, the Basin Creek Reservoir was classified as we could avoid. It was on a filtration waiver. So basically, the water basically is snow melt, a little bit from Fish Creek. So it's basically snow melt. So it's pretty pristine water. So in 1991, DEQ classified Basin Creek, gave them a filtration waiver. Basically, we didn't have to go through filtration. And basically, all we did there was chlorinate. And organic wise, it was pristine, but gets a little bit dirty. But that was in 91. 2010, DEQ, we have to do testing of our water sources. That's a requirement. we had 2 consecutive quarters where we exceeded disinfection byproducts. Basically, there's 2, they're called total trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids. And basically, it's when organic matter, naturally occurring or organic matter, reacts with chlorine, and it's carcinogenic. So basically, the EPA and Montana Department of Environmental Quality set standards, and we have to do these tests quarterly. 2 consecutive quarters, we were out of compliance on haloacetic acids. We're not even a point higher. I think 60 parts per million. We're like 60.1 or 2, but we exceeded 2 consecutive quarters. So the state came in and said, you build a water treatment plant or you go to an alternative source. So that's what got this plant, and I'm glad we did. We had to do it. And we're part of Region 8 of EPA. The headquarters are in Denver. All surface water should go through treatment. Beaver right now is on a filtration waiver. They have to do alternative disinfection. They do a little bit of UV, but they'll be building a water treatment plant here pretty quick. And I think that's the only one left in the state, I think. Right.
Where does Fish Creek go to? East of the Continental Divide?
Yeah, Fish Creek. Okay.
How do we get it over the divide?
Okay, Fish Creek. Do you know where Emerald Lake is? You've been up in that country? Basically, it's the headwaters of Fish Creek are North Fork and South Fork of Mammoth Creek, and that's just right below. It's just east of Red Mountain, right below Emerald Lake. That elevation at that point is higher than the Continental Divide further north. We have a pipeline from Emerald Lake or from the North and South Fork of Mammoth Creek. It goes down through Fish Creek, through Highland City, where Highland City used to be, up over the hill. And then right at the top of the hill, that's where the pipeline starts, and it's open atmosphere there. And we read flow from there. But like this last year, Dean Hansen, he's over in Waterloo. He's the senior ride on that. His ride's 5 CFS. Ours is 5 CFS, but ours is year round. His priority date is he's senior from May 1 to October 31st. This year, they call us up and I don't have, so we go up there and pinch her back. How you doing, Dean? As a matter of fact, they had a rider this year, last couple of years. I don't know if you know Jerry Nance. Dean, Jerry? So anyway, he calls me up, he said, Jim, you got to cut back. And I would say it was still in July, we pinched her off completely. It was, so that means, no water, very little, there's drainage going to the Basin Creek. So it was going down. We had an algae problem and no water was coming in, no clean, fresh water. So we're almost at the point where, by the end, I just said, we got to make it through August. I don't know what else we got. And we did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So on a typical year, what month do you rely more on the visual rule?
What month? 2 months, July and August. They're the 2 months that, it's big, like I said. And usually, and if it's a good year, we won't start the pumps on the river till the 1st or 2nd week of July. But, that's, like I said, the Big Hole treatment plant is more of a peak plant. I consider it a peak plant nowadays. That's when high volume, that's when everybody's using water, but you can trend it, the peak use. Usually, like I said, July, and then sprinkling season's usually over September 15th, but it's on its way down, but definitely July. This year, as a matter of fact, July 15th, I look at peak day production by source. it was over 15 million this year, and I haven't seen that on one day by source, by source, combined sources, it was like 15 million, maybe 500 for consumption for that particular day. And before that, I'd say the previous 10, 12 years, there's around 14.2 or less. Yeah, I think this year more so than anything is it was really hot this year for an extended period of time. So I think that's part of it, and sprinkler systems and a lot used. And this year I made sure I went to the mayor and I said, we have to implement restrictions, and it was enforced. And the only thing I can say about restrictions, I don't think it's on the, I don't know if we can enforce it or not. We can't find people because it's not on the, city ordinance, the ordinance. I don't think it's right, but we tell people, you're gonna get fined after today. But for the most part, I think a lot of people pay attention, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. Right now, south down there, they're putting a subdivision down on, Timber Butte, there, 80 homes, And I noticed this summer, there's a lot more traffic in Butte than I'm used to, you go down Harrison Avenue and you think you're in Bozeman. Sometimes you can't get through, you have to wait twice to get through a light. So anyway, that's it, folks. I really feel that, my crew, I got some really good operators, we're kind of independent, we have to do what, work for the city, of course, but we're conscientious. Most of us are outdoorsmen, they're conscientious about the river, like all of us are. And we want to make sure that we keep water in the river. I think most of us, would like to see more water in the river and colder water in the river, for all parties involved.
Bottom line being, at peak use, your other systems are not enough. For the demand.
That's it.
And even, if the improvement of the Basin Creek Reservoir.
That's not going to do it.
Yeah,
That's not going to do it.
that's like incremental.
It's incremental. I'll tell you one other thing. Basin Creek Water Treatment Plant it's built 7 MGD and it'll deliver 7 MGD, but it's capable of 10, but there's got to be infrastructure. The pipe line it's 24-inch pipeline coming in and going out. If we upgraded that pipe, I think it's from the treatment plant back to the reservoir, it's 2.5 miles, and then from reservoir down. So maybe a total of 5 miles. If we could upgrade that from 24 to 36 inch, that plant, we could produce 10 million gallons out of that. That's something, in the future, but I can do that. Pardon me? It doesn't, like I said, those filters out there, it's ceramic filters, it's just based on pressure, more than flux or flow. So those filters could certainly handle it. I think that the engineer and the manufacturers, it's in the specs.
Just to be clear, the improvements to the dam, that's probably not going to increase either capacity or use from Basin Creek Reservoir. That would reduce water use from the bigger hole by itself, right?
Not by itself. There's always going to be, especially during the summertime, we just want to make sure that that dam, it's classified as high hazard. Just to make sure that there's no inundation on people below, for its safety. It's safety.
It up higher as you do maintenance. That do anything?
I don't think so. It's only going to go, it's 5787. That's at the spillway. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen.
Jim, how many millions of gallons you from the fire pit?
How many
millions of gallons does Butte require in the summer?
In the summertime, annually, it's pretty same. It's let's say 2.5 billion gallons at total. And summertime, like on the slide I just showed you, I think it's 1.3, June, July, August, September, it was right around 1.3 billion. Daily average this year was a little high, I kind of go by month. July was, right around 12 million this year. It was significant, usually daily, wintertime average, right now it's right around 4.3. They can, guy can have to work at the plank and set his set point in there and kick his feet back and have a cup of coffee, He really, busted during the, high demand season, and then summertime on average, last 15 to 20 years, right around, 10.6, 10.8 million. This year was a lot different, and who knows, future growth. We'll see. But the thing that I want to emphasize, we still have the same resources, and what Butte-Silver can do is improve the infrastructure. And I think we've gone a long way, and we still need to do a lot more, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
On the sprinklers, do you have an impression of how, regulations were put in place, I think like June this year?
Yeah, that was mandatory sprinkling restrictions, yes.
How is it regulated or overseen?
That's not my department, I work in treatment, but anyway, we do have, our meter readers, they drive down and citizens, they'll call up, my neighbor's has his goddamn sprinkler on all goddamn day, so what we'll do, the water, in town, they'll have one of our servicemen go down there and just talk to them, give them a notice, say, we're not gonna, hey, there's restriction zone going on, you gotta go abide by it. And then, if they continue to do it, I think a fine is involved. I think they'll get fined. Well, Roy, that, like I said, that's not my department, but I don't know if it's in, like I said, I don't know, we have to enforce them, but I don't know if it's in the books, whether or not we can, and that's what we do. That's what they do. Like I said, I treat water. I make sure it's clean and give enough water. Yes.
One more on the flat rate, is that just residents or businesses?
No, all businesses are metered. The only people that are on flat rate is residential. And then what we're trying to do, we got a real good push in the program. If you want, if you're on a meter, if you're on flat rate, we'll install a meter for nothing. We'll put it in for you. And then, you can look right now, you're paying, let's say, during the winter time, you're paying, I think, our water rates are a little higher than, average, for big cities. We're pretty close to the average or a little bit higher. You're probably paying $33 a month on a meter. If you're on a flat rate, you're probably paying $43. And then during the summertime, they'll just charge it based on the area of your lawn, But, meters is the way to go, the whole system. That way, the utility can do an audit, where's the water going, and we can account for all of our water.
You think if everyone was on meters, there'd be less water use?
Definitely. Because you're watering your lawn, you say, oh God, my water bill this month is $85. So, and a lot of people water twice a day, if it's their day to water, there's certain hours, like say, odd number streets, water on odd days, like from 6 to 10 a.m., 6 to 10 p.m. You know, I'm on a meter and my lawn isn't that big, but I just water once. Every other day, once in the morning. And I got a sprinkler system. Sprinkler systems are, you know, efficient, and I don't move the hose or anything like that. Just a timer on it. I do a certain area. I think I have 4 zones. I run each zone for anywhere, depending on summertime is a little harder, anywhere from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. My lawn stays pretty green. I don't have to cut it as much. No. So
If you could estimate if everyone went metered, how much would we get in there?
I think it would, you would be able to see it.
You'd make it down.
I think you would.
Okay.
I certainly do. And any new construction in town, it's metered, you know, so we're pushing meters. Like I said, if you want a meter, you know, they're free. I think costing, you know, that's costing the city probably $200 at least with material and labor items, you know, around there. Yeah.
So from my perspective, I'm sitting here thinking about where's the water and how can we, you know, mitigate the droughts and what are all our alternatives. And one comment that struck me about one of the things he said was pine beetle outbreak, and you saw a noticeable increase in the amount of available water in just half the trees died.
That's happened in both of our reservoirs, Basin Creek, and I'll tell you what, Molten Reservoir, it's a smaller watershed. It's really small, and let's see, for I would say 15 to 20 years, we never got to the spillway. We had to take minimal flows out there. You know, like I said, that's a 2 MGD plant. Part of the summer, we only could take maybe 500,000 during the summertime because there was no water in there. After the pine beetle, you know, we're spilling, you know, the last 6 years we've been spilling at the Molten, and that never happened. And I kind of attribute it to the beetle kill because there's no place for that water to go except for down the drainage and into the reservoir.
So nothing else changed.
Nothing. That's the only thing that I can think of.
There's still people out there that discount the idea that trees use water and that cutting trees will save you water. And so I think it's important for us to keep that in mind. There's evidence out there.
There is evidence.
That's actually a real thing.
Yes.
And the last question, which you'll hate.
And of course, you know, trees absorb CO2 also. So there's the other side of that too.
Yeah.
You know, for climate control on a natural rate, but you know, that's beyond my scope.
Right. And this question you probably not like too much, but the other way to get water obviously is a reservoir, right? Storage. And that's a subject that's been around the big hole in this committee since its inception.
Yes.
I guess I just wanted to hear your thoughts, someone that manages reservoirs. Realistically, what does that look like pursuing storage in the big hole? What do you foresee? What is that landscape? How do you even get going?
The only storage that I know of that would be feasible is Patton-Gale, wouldn't it? You know, there was a reservoir up there at one time. That reservoir at the Patton-Gale was built just to supply electricity for the Big Hole water treatment or for the Big Hole pump station. That reservoir was built specifically to energize the pump station at the Big Hole. I think 1917 around there, but then it breached.
In 27, it breached.
In 27, that made the 100-year flood. But anyway, with regard to a reservoir, there's a lot of hurdles, you know, permitting, you know, for one thing, whose land is it, Forest Service land. Of course, there's going to be litigation. I can guarantee that, you know, and then as far as construction, get it built, operation, there's got to be operation. And then with regard, you know, a study on, you know, the reliability, the feasibility of will it sustain a drought? Will it be able to augment any kind of a drought? the volume in the reservoir, how much water you can release, you know, how much CFS you can release, which will help impact any kind of a drought, you know. Anytime that we've worked with other parties, you know, getting things done, just like I said, trying to do in this fire reduction project, that there's a lot of hurdles you got to jump. You know, a lot of you got to have the right contacts. We feel that we've got them, but a lot of people involved just to get things rolling. So, you know, I don't know about, you know, storage on the big hole. That's interesting, you know, but, you know, to save, you know, one step forward, it certainly would be an option.
How many big tanks can we do? I think you can go up and drive. We have a 9 million gallon tank.
9 million gallons.
That would be 1 day. So.
Yeah. And what we do there, you know, 9 million gallons is, you know, we're pumping, and what we're doing, we're just making sure that tank is 9 million gallon storage, 34 feet high at the, you know, at the overflow. And we cycle it a little bit, but, you know, during the summertime, of course, it's going to drop, but we're keeping her full. We're pumping, because one thing that I didn't mention also is keep up with demand, keep up with, you know, fire, you know, if we have a major fire, and then also if we have a crisis with regard to production, somebody shoots a transformer up at the Feely Hill. That happened to us way back when, you know, the substation, we're down for a week and a half at the big hole. That was in 80. Do you remember that, Jim, when that happened? Do you remember that at all? We just got online when we started in 80, or I'm sorry, in 94. I think it was, we're pumping along. I was working shift work, but I wasn't on shift. I was on my days off. 2 young kids at this time of the year hunting season, you know, the substation right at Feely. They shot 2 holes into the transformer up there and started leaking the oil, and operator at night, you know, things went black, you know, our control room started smoking. We were down for, I think, almost a week, but it was this time of the year, you know, we put people on, yeah, no water, nobody's using much water. We ask people to use as little water as possible. We're almost at the point where we're going to bypass treatment and send raw water into town, and that was a big decision made by the higher ups at then, and fortunately we didn't have to make she didn't have to make that decision. It was critical. So we try to keep our reservoirs as full as possible, expect our storage tanks full as possible during the summertime. Wintertime, we cycle them. We try to move water. We don't let water sitting in them very long. We don't like to see water age, you know, water sitting in a tank for an extended period of time, because that could be, you know, problematic for water quality.
Any other questions?
Any other?
That was totally fascinating.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
okay, thank you. I'm glad you put up with me. I'm not my public speaker. Thank you.
All right, you all, and we'll, thanks for coming. We'll see you next month. River Foundation's giving us an update on all of their water quality macroinvertebrate sampling that they've been doing for a couple of years. So Brian Wheeler will be up here giving us an update on that. 6 p.m. daylight savings. All right, thanks everyone. Drive safe. If you can stick around and help toss a table or two, much appreciated.
Well, I don't do that. And I